Hello and welcome back to the pod, everybody. This is the Custom Journeys podcast. I'm here with Andrew Baines, my co-host, and myself, Eliseo Iglesias. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, to Apple Podcasts. We have our content uploaded there, as well as Google Play. And make sure to follow us on IG at Custom Journeys. That's CUSTEM Journeys. We're very lucky today to have a wonderful guest here today. Her name's Nicole Young, and she is a software engineer and content creator. She has a wonderful YouTube channel that everyone should subscribe to called Nicole.Young. She is a self-taught front-end developer and freelancer. And additionally, she has a Bachelor's of Science degree in sports and exercise psychology, summa cum laude, from West Virginia U. Thank you, Nicole, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Really excited to chat with you all today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again, Nicole. Just to echo Eli's statements. Yeah, we're really excited about you and having you on here. And for people who haven't seen your YouTube channel yet, I really, like Eli said, I really recommend people check it out. You really do a good job of like telling your story of how you went from like a psychology focus all the way to being in tech and being a freelance software engineer. That's a pretty big transition, a pretty big pivot to make. And based on your grades alone in psychology, it seems like you had a really good opportunity to have a really great career in psychology. So I'm really excited to get into it. So I guess we can just start with like, what is your current job like? I know you're a freelance software engineer, but like, what does that mean? What do you typically do on like a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so for me right now, actually, I am pretty much full-time content creating while trying to get a business off of the ground with a co-founder of mine named Joel Ramirez. I was doing freelancing like throughout the pandemic, throughout 2020, and really enjoyed it. And so earlier this year, I did a full stack coding bootcamp to kind of really get some formal experience in or education in the software engineering world. And when I got out of that and just trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be, what I wanted to do, I really wanted to get back into freelancing, but kind of build it up to a little bit more of the like more formal than what I was doing throughout the pandemic. I wanted to kind of start my own sort of digital agency, and I was connected with him through YouTube. He also has a YouTube channel, and we just decided that it would be fun to kind of combine our skill sets and just try to build something together. So that's what we've been doing for the last month or so. So yeah.
Awesome. So it's really, we're going to get into it, but so you just met your co-founder like a month or two ago or in the midst of the pandemic?
Yeah. So virtually met. I've actually never met him in person, which is very interesting.
Wow.
But I virtually met him early on when I first started my channel on YouTube. He had invited me onto his channel to interview me and to talk about like my journey into tech and things like that. And we just kind of informally like stayed connected on Instagram and things like that. And when like in the height of Clubhouse era where people were just really connected and stuff like that, we got reconnected on there and just stayed more in contact. So when he knew that I was going through boot camp, he kind of checked in because he also went through a boot camp, and just like letting me know that he was like a resource as I was figuring out what I was going to do afterwards. But it just so happened that he also, around the time I got out of boot camp, was interested in trying to figure out something on the freelance end. So it just worked out.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. So I just wanted to kind of start off there, like with the end in mind, like where you're at now in life and in your career journey. But I really want to start at the beginning, kind of like, and you don't have to go into deep detail as far as like, when I was in middle school, I knew I was going to be a psychology major, but just kind of start off maybe in college and like, what was your mindset in college? And then if you can kind of take us through that journey of like how you got into tech or interested into tech.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me take a drink of water because.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was like I was that person throughout my educational journey that was like I love school. I was really good at it. I got really good grades, things like that. As you read, I did not even know you were going to share that part of like me graduating summa cum laude. But
We do our research.
yeah,
We,
that's
we
great.
have we have a very good research team here at
That's
Custom Journeys.
surprising. That was really surprising. But yeah, I was really good at school, and I saw myself going through completely through to PhD. Like I'm someone like I wanted to go all in on that, and I was always interested in psychology, and was told when I got into college that I needed to pick like a specialty in that. So I picked sport and exercise psychology because I was very active in sports and that kind of stuff throughout my life. I'm part of a big athletic family, and I got the brains, not really the athletic ability, but still wanted to like connect that in some type of way. So I just went through that, and I loved the major that I did, but I just had a hard time finding something that was gonna click, like in terms of what am I gonna devote my life to. And so after graduating college, I got a grant opportunity through Fulbright that enabled me to go teach English for a year in Malaysia. And
Nice.
through that opportunity, being able to work directly with students, being able to teach them different things, and just also having the opportunity to kind of travel, meet people who are doing awesome different things, digital nomads and working remotely and all that kind of stuff, I realized that the path that I was on of trying to go the PhD route was not going to work for me. So I just decided I was going to figure something else out. I didn't know what that was going to be. So I dabbled in marketing and in just a lot of different things. I did a little work with nonprofits and stuff like that. And then I landed an opportunity at a tech startup here in Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh's like got a lot of startups. We have a lot of different things going on here. So landed that opportunity, had no interest in really tech at all, and honestly did not know what the company was doing with the tech that we were using for like the first 3 months I was working there. I just was like, I'm here, I do my job, and then I clock out, and it was fine. And but I started to really become interested in what I was doing there. And so I was helping to teach an artificial intelligence model, basically, and feed it tons of data that was like encoded with different things, kind of like the reCAPTCHAs that they do to check if you're not a robot when you're like signing into things. It was very similar to that.
Pick the motorcycle.
Yeah, like labeling different things. Yeah. And we were working with roadway systems. So like, what is a pothole? What is this type of cracking? What is sealant on the road? And just trying to like label that and feed the data to it. And we sold that data for different roadway systems to local governments around the world, really. And so I started very entry level, just like, here's all this data, like labeling tons, like hundreds of thousands of pictures on a weekly basis. And then as the company grew, we had more need for that. And so I naturally kind of like took on a managerial role where I developed systems and processes for a team of people to do that. And also it became this weird, like, kind of like an advocacy role. So I was like in the middle of our development team and helping them to develop products that were going to help us internally and externally, and also working with our customers and partners on teaching them like how to use the technology. And I really loved it, and was introduced to coding and Python and like different things like that. And as I grew out of that role, I decided that I wanted to do my own thing and continue in coding. So
Gotcha.
I just started learning on my own after I left.
Nice. Hey, so quick question. So up until like that managerial role that you took, did you have any coding experience, or was it just purely like classification of like, hey, this is a pothole, this is like sealant or whatever?
Yeah. So
Wow.
we had a really amazing like data scientist, PhD something on our team, and he created an interface that we just had to paint on top of the
Gotcha.
image that was labeling the different features, and then the algorithm that he built like figured out the rest of it. And the main thing that I had to do was like a few quick Python scripts that just was telling the machine like what I was doing and like running some data on the data sets that I was working on. But other than that, I didn't have any coding experience or any like interest in it before that. And so it was through that exposure, and then also just like working directly with our development team, just learning what they were doing and starting to understand like what went into what they were building. It was just really interesting to me.
Awesome. Hey, so I got one more, like, this is like completely off topic,
Yeah.
unrelated, but it's related to your journey. So you say
Mhm.
your family is like athletic and you had a psychology background. So I don't, do you keep up with like the NBA at all?
A little bit. A little
A little
bit.
bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in Pennsylvania, right? So I mean, the
Mhm.
Sixers, the Philadelphia Sixers, like the whole Ben Simmons thing, and they were talking about. I don't know if you follow. You know Ben Simmons? You follow him and all that? Not
No,
really.
not
Okay,
really.
I'll just punt it. All right, it's no worries. I was gonna ask you like from a sports psychology thing, like what would you recommend for him? Because he's having a tough time with like the big moments of games, and I didn't know sports
Uh,
psychology was even a real big thing until like
mhm.
recently. I was watching ESPN, but that's cool.
Yeah,
We'll cut that part out of the
that's
interview. That's cool.
interesting. But that's interesting. That's actually something similar. The Tiger Woods, like when his whole life blew up, that was actually what got me interested in that. So
Wow. Okay.
I don't know Ben Simmons specifically, but it's things like that that are very interesting to me. Like it's usually just like working directly on um with a psychologist to build like routines and rituals that like in the moment you can use to kind of trigger your focus or getting back into a state of flow or like
Nice.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
Very
That sounds like something I need to be honest.
Yeah.
But um,
I'm just thankful you didn't bring up the Cowboys, Andrew. So that's a
we'll do that
plus.
another
So,
day.
but Nicole, I like to step back a little bit. Could you talk about a little bit about your Fulbright scholarship
Yeah.
application first, if you can, if you don't mind, explain what that is for the
Hmm.
audience, and number two, how was that beneficial to your career? I know you spoke about it a little bit, but maybe speak on it more.
Yeah. So, my Fulbright scholarship. So I didn't do any study abroad or anything like that throughout my college experience, and I kind of got to a point where I was like, oh shoot, I should have done that. Like, and I was in what is called the McNair Scholars Program, which is like preparing undergraduates to get into PhD programs. Um, and just helping to support like people of color who want to get into that because obviously like, the numbers are skewed for people of color. And so I was in that program and was introduced to a lot of those types of opportunities. And um, we had a really good program at WVU that was helping students to apply to programs like Fulbright. So Fulbright, they have partnerships with different countries around the world, and you can either come in as an English teacher, so teaching English as a second language to, it varies based on the country, on the age group, or, you know, the type of work you would be doing. It could be like an actual English professor at a university, or like how I was just like in a very small village high school
Mm-hmm.
teaching students there. And it varies. And so you could either be doing research or teaching English. And so I decided to go the English route. And Malaysia has a really big program. So although Malaysia is a very small country, they take in like 100 ETAs, English teaching assistants,
Mm-hmm.
each year. And then they do a whole year with with the school that they are assigned to. And so it was a really amazing experience. And so the process, it was like 3 rounds, I think, different essays and interviews both internally in my school and externally, and just it was a lot of writing is all I remember, like just tons of essays and things like that. But yeah.
No, thank you. Whenever a guest brings up a great resource like McNair or Fulbright, we always want to shout it out so more people are aware that this is something that they can apply to if they want a
For
similar
sure.
experience.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend if your university offers the McNair Scholars Program, I would definitely at least inquire about it if you have interest in going through PhD or anything like that, because it helped me to prepare on understanding like what would be required of me. And I actually I graduated with 2 full offers for PhD programs before I took my offer to go to McNair, so or to Malaysia. So it was super helpful. I would definitely recommend it.
Awesome. That's very interesting. One thing about your story that I like is that you're not afraid to like try different things. Like you tried going to Malaysia, you got to Malaysia, you're like, you know what, I don't think I want to do psychology anymore. And then you got at the tech startup and so on and so forth. So I guess one of the first questions we really have is for people who may want to be interested or who are interested in tech, how can they figure out if tech is the right field for them? Is there like anything that they should be trying or anything they should be doing to kind of figure out, hey, this might be a viable option for me?
Yeah, so for me, when I started to realize that I was interested in a career in tech, the first thing I did was just networked. Just like any events in Pittsburgh. I know like it's kind of weird now with things still being a little bit iffy with the pandemic, but just finding ways to connect with people who are already in the industry. Particularly as a Black woman, I tried to find other women of color who were active in Pittsburgh in the tech scene and just connecting with them, learning from them, because like people who have that experience are going to be able to kind of guide you on the right path of like what things to avoid, what things to look into, and like also resources that you would never know existed. So that was super helpful. So like the first thing, and like I'm very introverted, very shy, like in the beginning, which I think people are like confused about because I'm not like that on my channel. But in person, I'm very like kind of more shy and reserved. But I was like, I have to do this. I have to figure out like how to connect with people, go to these events, actually talk to people so that I can figure out like what would be a good fit for me. Because at that time when I started, I wasn't sure if like I knew I liked and was interested in coding, but I wasn't sure if like a career in that type of field was right for me yet, or if it was something more in like the managerial advocacy type role that I was in already. So just like getting connected, building connections, and building relationships with people at different levels
Gotcha.
in the industry for sure.
One quick follow up? What kind of events would you find? Like, were you looking on like Eventbrite.com or Meetup.com or what?
So the first thing I did was I just Googled any like tech related organizations in my area. So in Pittsburgh, just like our tech council and different things. And just from there, like followed them on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere I could, and finding any events that they were doing. And then also, yes, Eventbrite and things like that were really good resources of finding tech specific things that were happening in the area, and different organizations that were kind of starting up and providing resources to help with diversity and all of that. So I just kind of started on Google because I really didn't know where to start or what to start with. But then a lot of like social media and stuff from there, just like trying to figure things out.
Cool.
For people that are trying to get into that network, what is a good template, good rules of thumb to have when you're cold calling, cold DMing, or what the kids slide into people's DMs? Yeah. What is the best way to reach out to people like that?
Yeah, I think this is a really good question. Because I definitely made mistakes in the beginning of like, hey, I'm interested in this. Can you help me? And that's like not really a great way of going about it. Just like straight up asking people to help you or mentor you or whatever. I would suggest like just inquiring about what they do, not trying to take up too much time or be too much of like a time suck or burden on people, because like understanding that they are all very busy people. And I think that for me, what helped was just like, saying, hey, like I am in the area, very interested in what you are doing, learning more. I'm interested in like getting into this industry, very new. And just like emphasizing that I'm new. I don't really know much, but like happy to learn from you. Would love to buy you a coffee and just pick your brain, or really just anything, like talk to you about what you are doing, what you have going on. Because people like to talk about themselves. And I learned that
Yes.
if you are asking them about themselves and what they do and what they have going on and the initiatives that they are plugged into, a lot of times you get a lot more like response and like, people kind of wanting to help in that way. And I got very lucky because I got plugged in with a couple of women, and they were very connected with different things that they were doing. And so they became like, okay, we'll just take you under our wing, and like, here's this event. You should go to this. Here's this. You should be doing this. Oh, you should definitely go talk to them. Like, so I did get very lucky, but sometimes just doing your research, like LinkedIn, you can pretty much figure out as much as you need to know. Like, you guys got my whole, I could definitely, I'm a pass, like right
Yep.
here. It's like, you can figure out a lot about people, and do your research on the people who are in your area, and like how you can get connected with them and learn about what they are doing. And from there, it kind of just will unravel.
Nice. Okay. Thanks. That's really good advice. So I think going back to your journey, so you became a manager at this tech startup. You were kind of like doing self-paced learning, and
Yeah.
then at some point you were like, "Hey, I want to go ahead and get formal training at Full Stack Academy."
Okay.
This is like we've actually discussed in a previous episode, like different ways you can get into STEM. One is being like self-paced learning, like Coursera and things of that nature, or free code camp, whatever. And then also you have the boot camps like Full Stack Academy that you mentioned. For people that may want to get into STEM or tech, what would you recommend as far as like the best pathway for them to choose? Or maybe there's not like an absolute answer. So what advice would you give for them when trying to figure out if they should do like self-paced learning or a coding boot camp?
Yeah. So the advice I give when people ask questions similar to this is that, like, I really like the way I went through it of like, I'm going to test some things out myself using whatever free resources I can find online. And then when I had a very clear idea of like, I definitely want to do software engineering, I definitely want to do full stack software engineering, that's when I did like a bigger investment of my time and money in resources like that. But I think like a lot of people I talk to online that I'm connected with through my social media are like, I know that there are a lot of these different things that are good. There's, cybersecurity, there's data science and all of that, like, that are really good paths and like have really good growth potential, but not really knowing where to start, not knowing whether or not you need to code. And like, there are so many free resources online, thankfully, now that you can kind of test the waters a little bit, watch a lot of YouTube channels. Like, there's so many good people teaching on YouTube as well. And just test the waters. And you really do have to give yourself time to play around with some of the code, some of the different languages, and the different kind of fields and the things that you're doing. First, I would suggest doing that first, just to get a good idea, so that you're not just pouring tons of money into things and then wanting to switch or like realizing it's not for you. Because I definitely almost, when I first started, went into data analytics, and I'm so glad I didn't, because I don't like numbers as much as I would have had to like work with them through that. So yeah, I'm glad I like gave myself the time to kind of experiment with things and test things out before jumping in and making like a bigger commitment in more formal learning environment.
Nice. So, is a follow up, I guess. So, with Full Stack Academy, you got a chance to learn like front end, web development, back end, all that. What software skills would you recommend that people learn first, like if they're just starting off? I know you mentioned Python earlier. What would be your recommendation?
So I'm really biased because my stack is in JavaScript. So I definitely
Okay.
really like JavaScript. I think that like most people do start with HTML and CSS when they are like just kind of getting introduced to what coding is. And I know like not technically coding languages, but like it's a good foundational like skill to understand. And I usually suggest JavaScript to people who are just getting started and wanting to get into software development or like web development, because I feel like once you learn HTML and CSS, like JavaScript is like the natural progression after that,
Yeah.
because it's browser based and they integrate together. So it's just I would suggest that because I feel like too, and a lot of the people I've talked to who are, you know, developers at or software engineers at Google or at different startups and building apps and things like that, most of them have JavaScript experience and use it regularly. So it's like something that you kind of have to have a general understanding of anyway, even if you're specialized in like iOS or different things like that down the line. Like you will kind of find your specialty probably, but most people still require you to understand at least what's going on with JavaScript. So I say just start there.
Awesome. So I got one more question, and I'm gonna let Eli take over for a minute. So you also mentioned like you were thinking about data analytics, right? And that was gonna require like a lot more math. What are some of like the misconceptions of tech? So like, I think a lot of people think like, hey, you need to be like a math expert and know calculus 1, 2, and 3 to
Mhm.
get into tech. But what are some of those misconceptions that either you had or other people typically have?
Yeah, I think this is a good question because it is why I never considered tech for myself before having, you know, the introduction I did in my career. Um, and I think a lot of the misconceptions is that you have to be like super smart, like you have to be very technically savvy. I'm not, like I was not, like I'm very tech uh I'm not the person you go to when you like need when the remote's not working or like whatever. I just thought like I just am not good with technology. Like it doesn't agree
Yeah.
with me. Um, like you have to be really good with that kind of stuff. Be really good at math, and I hate math. Like that was like I went through psychology because I was like, what career path can I go on and take the least amount of math classes as possible? And like I took a math class and a stats class, and that was it. That's all I needed. I was like, cool, we'll do that. That sounds good to me. I loved psychology, but I was like, yes, this sounds good to me. Um, and I don't like I don't like I like technology. I don't like math a lot. So, um, to think that you have to be very like an analytical thinker and all of that. Like I'm not super strong in those areas, but you get the chance to work on that with your code. And there's some paths that you can go on where you won't really need a ton of math that you couldn't just use it like a calculator for or something like that. So,
Nice.
um, yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, I like to dig deep a little bit deeper on that point. And by the way, just to remind everyone that's listening that that Nicole has her own YouTube channel where she goes into deep discussion on many of the topics she just brought up. So I want to just remind everyone of that. Now, earlier you mentioned whipping out a quick script, Python script,
Mhm.
to solve a problem at your job, right?
Mhm.
Which is not trivial. It's not trivial to get to a point, in my opinion, where you can quickly write up a function in Python and use it and adapt it. Talk about your process of getting to the point where you can, on the fly, write up a script to help achieve a goal in your job.
Yeah, so it started of like I was given scripts like, okay, this is the script that does this particular thing that we need you to do. And it started there, but anyone who's ever worked in like a startup or with a small team, they'll know that sometimes like the resources are spread thin. So like after a while, it was like, okay, this isn't working, but I needed to do this. And so like just kind of okay, I know how to open this script. Let me look at it. Let me kind of look through what is it actually saying. And like some languages, especially like Python, JavaScript, they're languages that if you speak English, like you could probably figure out generally what it's trying to tell you, like what it's doing. And so it started of me kind of like when things were not working and they were breaking, like, okay, let me look in this and just see if I can figure out what the problem was. And a couple of times of like actually figuring it out was like all I needed, like that dopamine hit of like, oh yes, we got it. That's all I kind of needed to be like, okay, this is super fun. I want to be able to learn how to do that. But it takes a little bit of curiosity and like that like the initial fear of like, oh, what if I mess it up or fail? Like kind of just have to get over that and just try it. And if you do break it, at least there's someone that can help you eventually like fix it, who wrote the script anyway. So that was kind of the mindset I went in it. And I was glad that the startup that I worked for had a very good like one of the models was like fail early, fail often. Like they encourage us to try things and just fail as often as we could, because usually if you're failing, that means you're trying a lot of different things. So it kind of helped me to get out of like my head of like, well, I don't want to touch anything because if I mess it up, then cause it's like it's not like that big of a problem. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Hey, so let's talk a little bit more about Full Stack Academy and your experience at a coding bootcamp. So you said earlier that you didn't even really think about doing tech when you went to college. I guess 2-part question. If you could go back, would you just major in like some kind of technology, computer science or something like that in college? And then also, what, in your opinion, what would be the pros and cons of doing like a coding bootcamp versus just going to like a 4-year university for computer science?
That's a good question. So if I could go back, I definitely would take something. I don't know if I would take computer science, but I definitely would try to like minor in something that would allow me to have learned code earlier. I think something I wish I would have done is like business or like something like that focus, like because now that I'm like in like freelancing and learning how to be an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of things I just don't know and I'm just like learning as I go. And I feel like a cousin of mine, she majored in like business management or something like that, and she's like the person I go to when I don't know where to start, so like help me out here. And so I wish I would have just did that to get that foundational knowledge, because I feel like as someone who has now has the software engineering ability, for me, like the fun is in using that to build things that I can sell and help people with, you know, things like that. And that it takes a lot of business acumen. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So yeah. And in terms of, what was your second question?
Like the pros and cons of doing like a coding boot camp versus like a 4-year university. And I guess cost is like the biggest thing, right? Because college is expensive as hell, and like Full Stack Academy is like the cost of one semester at some schools. So are there any other like pros and cons? And I mean, it could even be something like the alumni network that you get at like a 4-year university versus like a coding boot camp. I don't know if they have an alumni network, so it could be anything like that.
Yeah. So there are pros and cons of both for sure. I love that I had the experience, the university experience, because of like, it's just that it's more like the socialization that you get of like, okay, figuring out who you are and like what you're interested in, and getting connected with people that you could build relationships with throughout your life. And also just having like really great resources available to you. So if someone is interested in that experience, like whether or not you are studying like what you will be doing for the rest of your life, I think it's still like a solid experience. Expensive for that type of experience for sure. I don't know if it's worth it there, but like if you are going down that route already, or if you have your heart set on it, I feel like it's not like a lose-lose. It's not like a lose situation. But for people who are not trying to spend that much money, not trying to be in debt for years to come, and not trying to or like just trying to like get their start quickly, I feel like a boot camp is a great launching point for that. I mean, you still have to, like, there's a lot of learning you have to do on your own and a lot of work you have to do after boot camp. But I think if your goal is just to get into the workforce as quickly as possible, I feel like a boot camp is a great place to start. And fields like software engineering and that offer boot camps are like a really, I think, a great career path to be able to do that with. So.
Gotcha. Do the boot camps provide like any kind of like networking opportunity? Because you know how like at colleges they have like the alumni networks, they have like career services centers. Do the boot camps kind of have the similar or the same?
Yeah, so for the one I was in, Full Stack Academy, there is a really good network. There's like a Slack channel that you can get plugged into after you graduate. There is actually, while I was a fellow there, I helped start like a smaller one for just the people of color who were coming through as well, and because it's like just a smaller group of people.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then also, I think like we had a really great like career services team that organizes a lot of events so that you can like have panels with people who are in the industry now after graduating, or like, you know, just asking questions, learning what you need to learn in terms of like getting in the jobs, landing certain interviews, and how to get through that process. So I was very fortunate to find that boot camp and to be accepted into that one, because I feel like even now, like if I decided I wanted to go that route and get a job, I have the support that I need and can start doing mock interviews and preparing and all of that at any point. So I think that's like a really good thing to look for in a boot camp.
That's great. So one last question about boot camps, and then I'm gonna kick it back over to Eli again. How did you? Well, it's two-part. What was your experience overall like? If you had to rank it at Full Stack Academy, and then how did you choose Full Stack over like all the other coding boot camps that are out there? And hopefully somebody else can use this information to like help them decide which boot camp is best for them.
So out of so ranking it out of 10, I would rank it like an 8. I really enjoyed it. The only reason why I would bump it down is because I just like struggled with finding my like work-life balance while it was going on. And I think that's probably pretty normal while you're in a boot camp, because it's so fast-paced and it's very intense. And so there were a couple moments on my channel, you could probably see one of those moments I just had an emotional time, like, okay, this is like really tough. But yeah, I really loved my experience, and like also having friends who went through boot camps while I was also in a boot camp. They went through different ones. I feel like I had the best experience personally, the best like support as well. So I do feel like lucky there. And also, I would say in terms of like looking for a boot camp, I feel like about 3 or so months before I attended or I applied, I was like, I think this is what I want to do, and started doing research on the different programs that are out there. I looked at so many, ranging in pricing, ranging in what they offered, ranging in what stack they taught. And like, for me, I feel like it was the fact that, number one, at Full Stack Academy, they focus on one language, and that's JavaScript. And they teach you a stack that is built off of like the frameworks and things of that language, which I think is really great, because you only get 3 months or so in a program. And being able to leave saying that I have a deeper knowledge of this one language, I feel like can work out better in your favor of saying I have like this surface level knowledge of these multiple different languages across the board of, like how people put their stacks together. And so I did really enjoy that. And I think that a lot of the frameworks I've learned are ones that are being very widely used, like React, and things like that. I also, the price was a big deal to me too, because I didn't want to have to like spend a ton of money on it, and I actually got a scholarship for Full Stack Academy that covered my full tuition. So that was kind of like very fortunate. Yeah, thank you. I was very fortunate to be a part of like a few people who got that scholarship. I'm not sure if they're continuing to do it, but it was for African American and Black, people who associate as Black or African American. And it was around the time like the pandemic and like the different like Black Lives Matter movements and things happened. Someone I think donated a large sum of money to help get some more Black people into the program. So very fortunate there. But so that factored into it as well, like heavily. Like I could potentially go for free, but I did really love the model that they had set up for this program too. So that's just fit.
And can you highlight the scholarship? Was this just an in-house scholarship at the boot camp? Okay, that you could apply to?
It was an in-house scholarship. It was called the Opportunity Fund. So like if you search on their website, just Opportunity Fund, it should come up. If not, they have tons of other scholarship programs for people in different like underrepresented groups. So I definitely like for any bootcamp, really definitely check and see if they have that type of financial help or support, because a lot of times like you could be saving yourself a lot of money that way.
Right. Thank you for sharing for that. That's a theme that Andrew and I and Andrew, his internet crashed, so he didn't get bored. He's having some technical difficulties at the house here in Houston, his house at Houston, but he'll be back on when he can. But so that's a common theme in that what we think of as non-traditional students is becoming more of the norm, simply because of the cost of tuition nowadays with traditional colleges. So now in that discussion, we talked about how you might not have access to the alumni network or networking, right? Our research department here at Custom Journeys has found a Facebook group that you manage, where you connect, help connect different people that are trying to get started in coding, which is wonderful. I don't know if you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So like back before before I even did boot camp, it was when I was just kind of learning on my own. I started it was more geared towards like 100 Days of Code, and just like anyone who is interested and just wants that moral support of like going through it with someone else. I was doing it, and I just opened it up to anyone who was interested. And it has kind of evolved over the year or so into a group of just like helping to answer those early questions that you might have when you're first starting to learn, providing resources, any chance that I get. There's a lot of people, very experience levels in the group as well, who also are providing resources to people and answering questions. And it's just a good place to kind of have that, just the support and the company of like going through the learning journey with other people, because I think it can get really lonely. That was something I experienced when I was first starting to learn on my own, of just it being kind of like no one really understood, like in my personal life, no one really understood what I was going through or what challenges I was having and the struggles, and just having people who are doing similar things. I think it really helps to keep you motivated and keep going on whatever it is you're learning. So
I think that's a wonderful thing. And by the way, this is open knowledge. This is on your LinkedIn page, linked to your bio page, and we'll share it in the show notes below. But it's just a wonderful resource, and I found it. I thought this is exactly what we and Andrew want to cultivate, is these independent networks to help our people, get through all the hurdles of trying to get just a STEM degree. Yeah, exactly. So moving forward, last question on boot camps we have here for you is what are the best practices to select the right program for you and one that's going to get you a job?
I love that. So I would say this is not a decision you want to rush. This is a very like important decision. I would say like in the same way you take time to pick like what college you want to spend the next 4 years, I think it is really important to take time to research what you want out of a boot camp and what boot camp works best for you. So the first thing is just doing like the surface level research of checking their websites. What do they offer? What stacks do they teach? And making sure that that aligns with the goals that you ultimately have, the types of jobs that you want to get. I would say looking into and making sure that like they are teaching up to the industry standard, which changes very frequently. So just making sure they're keeping their curriculum up to date. I would suggest getting some interview time with recruiters or just someone, or even reaching out to people who are who have attended these boot camps, so you can find them on LinkedIn, things like that, reaching out and asking genuinely about their experience and how well they were prepared. I feel like that is a really good thing to do, and just because people will be honest with you usually. Like if they don't feel like it really well prepared them, they will genuinely be honest about that. And another thing is just making sure, I feel like this is not something that people think about on the front end of like just applying. They're just trying to get the skill set. And like, I feel like a lot of boot camps promise this like better life, making six figures, or, you know, entry level and different things, you know, getting a job and all of that. But a lot of the time when you dig deeper, it's like the statistics that they report are often like jacked up because they are hiring internally some of their students to support the efforts that are going on in the boot camp, and they count that usually in like the employment rates and different things like that. So you have to like really make sure you're like checking in on that. But also I would say make sure that whatever program you pick has a good support system in career development and interview prep and like that kind of job prep. I'm really glad that mine does, and had it. And I was assigned to a coach at the beginning of my time in the program, and I still have contact with that coach, and at any point in time can reach out to them for the resources that I need, or for help with interviews or resumes or anything like that if opportunities arise. So you want something that's going to help you with that, because I think there are some boot camps that I've seen that will take you through that process, and then you're just kind of on your own after that, and you're on your own to figure out how to study data structures and algorithms to prepare for the technical interviews, and how to, you know, what are the proper ways of networking in order to get in front of actual people, to get interviews and to kind of get into the pipelines of like the hiring process. And so it is a lot to think about. And if your boot camp doesn't have some sort of system or support team of some sort that is devoted to helping you do that, I don't know that it is the best resource unless you already have that kind of support in your own life, which I feel like most of us don't. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a really good point. People don't take for granted what they get in college, and that is that network and that support system. And and that's something I feel for non-traditional students or non-traditional learners, they have to keep in mind. You need the social as well as the technical, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome back, Andrew.
Man, I'm about to fight Comcast, bro. They trying to sabotage us. This is the second time, man. All right. But I'm good. I took a second to, decompress over here before I came back on. But all right. So Eli, did you have any more boot camp questions for her? I think we should transition into like the freelancing.
Let's do it.
All right. Cool. So we're close. We're getting closer and closer. I want to start asking you about money. How much money you can make. Not there yet. So what made you choose to be a freelancer versus like just going and working as like a software engineer at some Fortune 500 company, which I'm sure you could do? And then what are the benefits of freelancing?
This is a really good question. So it started off as like, I had no desire at all of going back into any kind of 9-to-5 work structure because of how toxic the work structure ended up being at that job that I had mentioned earlier. As things grew with the company, leadership changed, their missions and values changed along with that, and just like wasn't good for me. And I was the only Black woman in the entire company, aside from one that I had hired on my team because I had that ability.
Okay.
But other than that, I was like the only one for like the entire time I was there, and it just like became very draining, like mentally, emotionally, like code switching and all of that. I've talked about that on my channel a few times. Like you underestimate how much that takes a toll on you when you have to kind of like turn on this version of yourself to be accepted by the people around you. And I was so tired after a while, and my leadership had changed, and it was not good, like from the start. So I was just like, I need to go. And I think that experience, I just needed to decompress from that experience for a while, but still needed to make money. So while I was learning, I had those connections that I had while I was networking and things, and just like, hey, I'm learning this new skill set. Like, there were people I knew who were building their own businesses and companies, and like, hey, if you ever need help, like with your website or like social media, things like that, just putting myself out there where I could. And so throughout the pandemic, from like January until I started Bootcamp this January, just was like supporting different small businesses, companies throughout this area, just with like random stuff with their websites, with like plugins and integrations, and just like different things like that. And it helped me to learn as I went. So
Nice.
I was kind of like, how
So
that
that
started.
networking that you did earlier in your career really helped you out again, because it's like you already had that network and you knew like how to approach people to find new
hmm
clients. Is that right?
Yeah, that made the biggest difference because once I was disconnected from the network that I had within my company, I still had like connections that I had built myself, which
Nice.
was the only reason why I was able to kind of get into freelancing in the first place. So I definitely I'm so glad I did it.
Okay, cool. Hey, this is my favorite question to ask people. How much money do you or can you make as a freelance software developer? And I mean, let
So
me wait. I mean, I'm asking you a personal question, so if you don't feel comfortable like saying exact numbers, that's cool. Don't feel pressured, but I would love to know.
so when I was just getting started, this is a weird question because it's like it's changed so different. Like it's been so up and down because freelancing is like it's really on you to keep that consistency. You don't get that same kind of consistency as you do in like a full-time job. But when I was first getting started, I didn't know a lot. I was charging like between like 500 and like 1500 per client per month. Like just here's like what I can offer you, and I'll just do like these little like maintenance things on your website, or helping you out with social media depending on like what they needed. So for me, it was like just like the scope of like their digital presence. Like, what do you need there? If it was something I could help with that I understood or that I was willing to learn, I kind of like put these little packages together, and I just did that like per customer per month. And like I was making like close to 50,000 when I left my job, and I was like I wasn't making like exactly 50,000. I was like around there. Like I was able to maintain like my lifestyle and like what I
Nice.
was doing generally with that freelancing. So even as it went up and down and like the pandemic made things kind of shaky, I was still able to kind of like keep some type of consistency there. And now the content creation is like a big part of what I do, and like I'm doing that full time. So that is also kind of freelancing in a sense. Like I'm working with brands and promoting their products and creating content for them on their channels. And then also like the money you make from YouTube, it's like not a ton, but it's something. So How much can you make is a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, probably like not at the level of what I could be. But I make more now than I did in my first job. So
Cool.
in that job. So I mean that, and like it's giving, I think the biggest pro of going freelance is just I have that freedom to kind of like I have the freedom of my time, my location, and also like being able to put my energy in where I want it to be. So like if I don't want to make content today, I don't have to. I can focus on this business that I'm trying to build. And like that's what I'm really excited about is just having this opportunity right now where I can sustain myself while still trying to build like this bigger vision that I have with my co-founder. So I think I don't know. I feel like the internet sometimes makes it seem like you can make like millions of dollars, and you can. You definitely can as a freelancer, but it's easier said than done for sure. So like I'm working on it. I've invested in coaching this year of like just getting that like more business acumen together so that I can like learn how to scale what I'm doing and like learn what the right moves are to make in the business that I'm trying to build. So
You're on your
yeah.
way. I've been seeing those Dice sponsorship Instagram posts. I've been seeing like, hey,
Oh my
Nicole
gosh,
trying to make some
that's
money over
funny.
here.
Yeah. So yeah, that was that. So like along with the networking that I did, one of the things I'm really glad I did was like took to social media to share like my journey as I was going, like as I was learning, um, to just because I didn't start it as like, well, I'm gonna be an influencer and be. I wasn't doing that. I was just like, hey, I am really interested in learning this. I don't know anybody else who does, and just like trying to find other people who were doing the same thing, and it grew into what it was. And so I just like took it and ran with it. Um, and like always liked like photography and things like that. So like just allowed me to have like a little bit of a creative expression as well. But um, yeah,
Hey, so
I think that was a benefit.
okay, one quick follow up. Do freelancers typically charge like per hour or per project? And how do you know if you're not like underpaying or undercharging people?
That's a good question. So I get this question a lot about like how do you price your services? I um I used to think in terms of like, okay, this will probably take me this amount of time, so I'll charge this amount of money. But I've gotten away from that, and a lot of like the things that I watch, like if you're familiar with like Chris Do with The Future, and like I watch a lot of like their stuff, and they're more in like the design and like creative side mainly, but like he talks a lot about freelancing, and talks about moving away from that structure of like charging per your time, because it's like really as a freelancer, as someone that has like this technical skill, you are bringing value that is goes beyond how much time you spent on it, because you could do something that took an hour but has like exponential impact on how much that company could make like down the line, down the year. Building a website might take, I don't know, a day, depending on what you're using, but that company is going to be making money through that website, converting people if you did it right, like for years to come, essentially. So like I've tried to go more in the structure of like charging for the value that you could provide. And that it can be really difficult to figure out what that looks like. One really good book that I've been reading with my co-founder is called The Business of Expertise. And it talks about how you can position yourself in such a way that you can charge like a good premium on your services, without like having tons of competition. Like, cause I think that's another thing too. Cause like, I know the mindset I had is like, why would they pay me this amount? Why would they pay me 1,000 when this person over here is only charging 500? It's like, what value can you bring? And just like trying to figure out what your value is, what your being realistic about like what levels of value you can bring. That is what goes into being able to charge like what you might want to charge. So
Cool.
Could you repeat the book and who's the author?
yes, let me look up the author actually because I do not remember. I've been listening to it on Audible, but it's called The Business of Expertise by David C. Baker,
Okay.
and it's on Audible. So it's a very good deep dive in like how you should position yourself as a business to kind of be able to charge what you want.
Gotcha. So it seems like it's like it's a multivariable answer. Like it seems like there's a lot of potential, and I think that's the great thing is that like there's not really a cap on like, hey, nobody's saying, hey, you can only make $100,000 this year or whatever with freelancing. You can do what you want, and I love that. But do you have any experience or any knowledge about like what the typical pay is for like software engineers? Maybe like there was somebody in your cohort of your coding bootcamp or anything like that you could reference.
I don't and like I'm very new at like where I'm at with it because we're starting with like more like done for you digital services right now. But it really it depends. I know like it really depends on what services you're offering. And I know that's like sucky answer because it's like, well, duh, like but like I met someone who created a Google Chrome extension and he makes multi six figures just off of this Google Chrome extension, charging a monthly fee on it. So like you could do passive route of creating something once, maintaining it, and he said that like the biggest thing is just providing the technical support that users might need to get set up or whatever. But that's his full-time job, and he lives I want to say he lived in Ghana. So like, just like whatever, like that's what he's doing. So there's different levels you can take it. And so like, it could be contracted work of like, I will build this app or this website for you. And I know like for that, like websites go for 10,000 plus, depending on like how much work you're putting into it, what kind of customizations need to go into it. Customized apps or software as a service type things could go for even more. So it's just I don't have like a direct example, but just doing the research that I have done, like it varies, and it depends on your knowledge as a software engineer and like knowing the industry that you're in and what other people are charging, just doing your research and due diligence on that, but also understanding where your unique abilities lie and like what unique value you can bring and how you can like kind of add to that to charge.
Yeah. So what about like I guess like software engineers that are at like big companies or are like they're like a full-time employee, not freelancing, but like let's just say you go work for like IBM or Google or something like that. Do you have any idea in terms of pay, like what people could expect? I'm assuming it's like six figures, but
yeah. So like I know that a lot of the people I know who have gotten into like entry level jobs at bigger tech companies, they start at six figures. So like I would say between like I've seen anywhere from like 90, like high 90s to like let's say like 110, 105, and it's 110. Starting off like I have some general experience, and then like from there, like I know someone who got a year of experience, and like their next offer was like 40 or $50,000 more than the entry level they had at like 100 something.
Nice.
So like I think with that, like the more experience you have, and then the like when you're starting off, it's like high five figures, like starting off like maybe lower six figures, but then from there, like your growth potential is huge, because once you get some deeper experience or expertise in a certain area or niche, it's like you can really start to get more from that. So
Okay. Hey, so real quick, because we're almost starting out of time, can you hit on the 50K challenge in 100 day that you and your co-founder are working on? This is something that I read
Yeah.
about. It's interesting.
Yeah. So we had been talking about like starting this company together for a while, but just didn't know how we could kind of like build excitement about it because we wanted to build in public. So that's part of it is just like we're gonna build in public, very similar to like what I love to do, and that's just like share my journey as I go through it. He's very similar in the way that he goes about his channel and things like that too. So we wanted to find a way of kind of like doing it where it kind of puts the pressure on us, but also like we can learn a lot in a short amount of time. And so it just so happened that around the time we were deciding like when we were going to start, that there was only like 105 days left or something left in the year. So it was like, well, why don't we do like 100 days to the end of the year and then like pick a goal that's like pretty substantial, but still like we feel like is doable if we do things right. So we decided that we were going to try to get our company started, get it off the ground, and make our first $50,000 within that 100 days. And so we're about, I don't know the exact date, but we're about a month in now. And we're getting it together. We're building and like a lot of stuff to do like on the business side, but I do like with the things that we've been learning on the side, like the books we've been reading and things like that. I do feel really good that we could hit our goal or even exceed it once we get our first launch of products out there, which is coming soon. So
Quick question: is it going to be like just freelancing, or are you guys making like digital products, or what do you actually?
So, okay. Yeah, that's another thing that I forget to go into. So our high level vision is that we have this business that has two entities. So one that is like more educational for people who want to do the same thing themselves, being able to help guide them through that process, through resources and courses, maybe a boot camp of some sort at some point in time. And then also helping our main focus is helping businesses of color like to really thrive in the industries that they are in. And so we have a lot of different ideas of like what products that could look like or what direct services that could look like. And right now we started at like the very lowest level of things that we wanted to do. And that's templates for websites of like high converting website templates that people can start off with. We both have design experience as well. So like that's a part of it too. Starting there, and then we're going to build into like actual intaking clients, hopefully before the end of the year, to help some businesses like convert what they're doing right now into something a little bit better. So
I love it, helping the people.
What is the name of the venture of the company?
yeah, so we are calling it Umber and Umber Society. So Umber Society is like the more the community aspect and what we want to do to share like our education, and then Umber is just like the umbrella company in general.
UMBER?
Yes.
Umber. All right. Just thought
So
it would a shout out.
yeah, it's umber is a color, and it's like a brownish color. So we felt like it fit what we wanted to do, and it's related to there's a story, and actually we have it up on Joel's channel. So Joel Ramirez, and his channel is Joxel, JOXEL VII, so Joxel 7. And he has a story of like how we came to the idea of like why we were calling it Umber. So yeah.
Nice. We got to get Joel on the show, but
Yeah, for sure. We do.
I'll let Eli take it away. Take us home, brother.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. So we have two more questions for you, if you can believe it. We've been talking for almost an hour, or over an hour, and we could probably talk for another hour. But we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on your experiences as a person of color, as a female in a mostly male and white-dominated environment. If you can talk about those experiences in ways that other people from our communities can use to navigate those spaces.
Yeah, this is something that's very close to my heart because I know that I struggled a lot early on, because I feel like it can be a very isolating experience, and like I call it like the being an only, like the only Black woman or the only person of color on a team. I feel like that is too common in tech right now, where you're on a team, but like you're the only person of color or Black woman or woman of color. And it can be very isolating, and it can be really difficult to feel understood and heard and supported in those types of environments. And so like the biggest advice that I can give is like definitely get connected with other people, because the moment that I started to network, I realized that it wasn't a problem with me, like feeling like, oh, it's me, I'm the problem. I was actually meant to feel like I was the problem by people in leadership at my company. Like, this is a you problem. This isn't a company problem. We're not doing anything to change it. I was like almost quote for quote, like told that like this is not like a real problem. And it was when I started getting connected and started hearing other people and their experiences, I was like, oh, like we're all going through this at this, like, this is not me having the problem. It's a problem with the system and the beliefs that people in leadership are having. So definitely just knowing that you're not the only one going through this, and that there are resources for you and ways that you can get connected with other people, it changed a lot for me.
And just to another reminder, Nicole has expressed these thoughts on this on her channel, Nicole.Young. If you want to learn more, she goes into much more detail about those experiences. Now, on the other side of that coin, I'll throw at you my favorite question that I ask guests, and that is the big picture question. So you discuss ways that maybe a person of color can navigate these spaces. Now, on the other side of that coin, you brought it up, the system that needs to be changed. And I always like to put it in terms of the Infinity Gauntlet because it's fun. But if you could make a policy change on a global level, national, local level, any scale you see fit, what would you change to bring more people of color, more women into the STEM world, specifically for coding and tech?
That is such a big question. Oh my gosh. And it's a really good one. And it's something that I thought about a lot when I was like really in it. I feel like the problem, I think there has been work done on diversity, right? Like, let's get more faces of color and people who look different in these spaces. But I think the real work is in inclusion. And I don't know what a policy would look like to really make sure that not only do we have these diverse people in our spaces, but what are we doing to make sure that their life experiences are being reflected in the work that they do, in the culture that is being created here? I think it's hard to say like high level policy. There must be something like that, but I definitely think it is work that needs to be done in companies to make sure that everyone is being actually reflected and not just checking the box that we have enough of whatever is here. Because I feel like that is done, and I know like being in Pittsburgh, which is not our tech scene is not diverse at all. And I feel like people of color struggle here a lot. I feel like a lot of our conversations that we have at these cute, like little events and stuff is, how can we make Pittsburgh a more diverse place? Not to put Pittsburgh on the spot, because I feel like it's a lot of us, it's a lot of different cities and places, but it's like we've done enough to bring them here. We're not going to retain them unless they feel like they are being heard and respected and reflected and being given the same pay and opportunity as everybody else. That we could go on another hour just talking about that. I feel like so it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, this for me, the ending is always hard to like hold my tongue because it's like you have so much passion about it. All three of us do. And there's like so much you want to say and get out of there. But I'm glad you shared your experience, and I hope that, we get to the point where it's not just talking about what we can do, but actually doing things. And I think that's one of the things I love about you and your co-founder, that you're actually not just saying, hey, it'd be great if black and brown people had more equity in the tech space, but you're actually like building your own table. I'm taking that analogy from like Tyler Perry talking about you don't always get a seat at the table. So, okay, if you don't get a seat at the table, go build your own table. So I love that you and Joel are actually doing that, and that you're so passionate about helping others, even hiring and employing others that look like you when you have the opportunity. So kudos to you, and keep it up.
Thank you. And I appreciate you all having me. I love what you're doing with the podcast and just spreading the word and making tech feel less intimidating for those of us who are switching in and just getting started. So I love that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks
for sharing your story.
So while we're still recording, I got a question for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Would you be open to coming back on and like doing like a woman panel of like STEM professionals?
Yeah, I would love that. I
All right.
love getting to talk with more women in the industry. I always learn so much and love making connections, of course. So
Cool.
for sure.
Cool. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. All right. Well, Eli, you want to take us home, my brother? You do the good closings and everything like that.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening in. And remember to follow us on all the socials. Make sure to follow Nicole.Young on YouTube. Let's grow that channel a little bit more after the show comes out. And keep on listening, keep on learning. And as of cuSTEM Journeys here, I'm my co-host Andrew Baines. I'm Elisa Iglesias. We're out of here.
See ya.
Smooth.
All right.